Okay, hello. Welcome everyone. We got 11 people attendees so far. So thanks for coming. And we've got Jim Manico, we've got Farshad Abasi, Julius Musseau. We're here to talk about OWASP's secret weapon here. Well, not so secret weapon here, but this is it. This is the thing. If you want to write secure software, ASVS is going to tell you how to do that. So I'm going to hand it over to Jim Manico to drive our conversation today on ASVS.
Thanks, Julius. I'm really excited about Farshad being here as well, because he spent so much time working with ASVS in his practice. So we have all these different perspectives. We have you, Julius, who's an academic expert in software composition analysis and compiler theory and similar. I know you're a smart technician, so you're taking a look at this for the first time, right? We have myself. I'm one of the authors of this standard along with Ilar Lang, Joshua Grossman, and Daniel Cuthbert. I'm actually helping write ASVS on a regular basis. And again, Farshad is consuming ASVS in his practice as he works with a variety of different customers around application security. So I like the different perspectives that we're bringing to this talk to start with. And I'm glad you're all here. All right, what do we got here? So Julius, yeah, he's a newbie, but he's not a newbie with technology, right? He's the main author of the merge-based product. He's an expert in the software composition analysis. He's got a patent on some of the work he's doing. So Julius is, you're no slouch, Julius, but you're new to ASVS. And again, Farshad literally built his practice on ASVS. I am one of 4 authors. I've been a lead author on one of the versions. Right now, I see Ilar and Josh Grossman taking more of the lead efforts on ASVS 5.0. And it's a team that works on this. So anyways, this is who we are for this webinar, right? So OWASP, if you're new to OWASP is the Open Web Application Security Project. It's a 501c3 charity based out of the United States, and it's an application security think tank. We spit out tools and documents and more in the world of application security. Now, one of our documents is the Application Security Verification Standard. This is a flagship product from the OWASP Foundation that's driving a requirement standard around web application security. And this is basically the WASV, WASVS, the web ASVS for web and API technology. There's also a massive mobile application security verification standard and an IoT application security verification standard. So what we're talking about today is the flagship version of this standard series, the web developer and API developer standard, right? All right, what else do we got here? So ASVS, again, the application security verification standard, it's capturing as much as it can the totality of global AppSec knowledge for securing web apps and APIs. It is a living document. We accept PRs, we accept various submissions when it comes to comments on our requirements or any kind of change you like to see. We have a very active community commenting and helping us with this standard. The current version is actually 4.03 is the most latest update. Forgive me giving you an old slide there, Julius. It's 4.0.3, and we are actively working on 5.0. We may cut version 4.04. I don't want to, but the team does. We're now pushing to release the 5.0 version. And Farshad, 5.0 is a rewrite, renumbering, new categorization.
When is that coming? Can I give some feedback into it?
Yeah, and on GitHub.
When is the timeline?
By the end of the year. So I go now. And okay. I'll point out where we're working sometime in the context of today. The other thing is ASVS, as the version is today, you're going to see that we have 3 different tiers, 3 different levels, level 1, 2, and 3. And we used to say level 1 is easily testable with the scanner. Level 2 is like half testable with the scanner. And level 3 requires human intervention and human testing. We are dropping those category labels. Those labels make no sense. because a pen tester uses tools, people using tools configure them, and what's a person and what's a tool is blurred in real assessment. So we're changing the different levels to be risk-centric. Level 1 is not for secure apps. It's just the easy entry into the standard. Level 2 is the baseline for secure apps. And level 3 is the baseline for critical infrastructure apps. So we're going to move our different risks, our different categories away from testing methodology, which makes no sense, into risk tiers like every other standard out there. And you'll see that change in 5.0 as well. So how can a company best implement ASVS? Hey, Farshad, you want to take this one?
How can they best implement ASVS?
We published the standard. We pushed it out. What is your path as a company to take ASVS and implement it in the real world?
Exactly.
You're up.
Yeah. So it depends on what they are doing. So if the company is building an application, if they're building software in-house, then the best place to start with is make sure that they're using it as requirements, right? So if you're on your journey, even if you're partway through your journey or all the way there, if you're building software and you're like, hey, what are my security requirements? And usually everyone looks at each other in the team and they throw their hands up. And I've seen that. They're like, wow, we have no idea what the security requirements are. Or at best, they'll be very high level. Well, we need to comply with SOC 2. That's very, very high level. So the best place to start is to take ASVS and say, there is my security requirements, right? But as Jim was starting to allude to, there are different levels of ASVS. So then the question is, well, which level is appropriate for you? But, we'll park that conversation for now, but, basically decide what level is good for you, take those as requirements, but also think about the testing that's about to come up, because once you build the software, either you need to test it internally or you'll have to engage someone externally to come and test it. And either way, in likely scenarios that they'll be aligned with ASVS, hopefully. And so the testers, internal and external, could also use that to test the application that your company is building. So best place to start with requirements is what I would suggest, and prepare for being tested.
Let's back up a little bit, actually. Jim, do you want to show us ASVS?
Absolutely. So let me break out of the presentation for a moment and let's go to the GitHub for ASVS, right? And we'll come back to questions after we go. I think it's a good idea, Julius. Let's go review on this. So this is ASVS. It's a GitHub repo, right? With some automation to build our documents. When you look at the current standard, you're looking at this right here. This is the 4.03 codified release. You'll see our intro, preface, how to use ASVS. We talk about assessment technology, and then we get into the requirements. This is the meat of what the standard is. A list of requirements for these different categories. Now, this is all architecture. We're probably going to change this dramatically. Let me go to something that's not. Like if I go down to for example, let's go down to say access control. There you go. Really straightforward requirements. 4.1.1. It's level 1, 2, and 3. This is a level 1 requirement meant for every app. Verify that the application enforces access control rules on a trusted service layer as opposed to a client-side layer, especially if client-side access control is present and could be bypassed. Simple rule. Like if you have a client application and an API and you're doing access control at the client and not at the API level, that's a fundamental mistake, easy to bypass. 4.1.2. Verify that all user and data attributes and policy information used by access controls cannot be manipulated by an end user. Like you don't want to have a cookie, which is editable, to drive your role or similar, right? Let me do one more. In the access control world, real simple. Let me actually, yeah, how about this? Verify the application has additional access control, additional authorization, such as step-up or adaptive authentication for lower value systems, or segregation of duties for high-value applications to enforce anti-fraud controls. Enough for now. Now, this is the standard, Julius. We could spend 8 hours going through these nitty-gritty requirements. And let me go back to this for a second, right? Let me go back to these questions. Now that you see a small sample of what these requirements are, it's several hundred of them, over 200 total. How can a company best implement 200 plus requirements? And my belief is you should go through a forking process. This is what we talk about in the standard documentation itself. I don't think you want to use ASVS as it is today, because you might not be using WebSockets. Some of these requirements might not work for you. You might not be building an authentication layer. You might be using an identity provider. So drop the authentication requirements. The point is, this is a total list of requirements meant for everything and everyone. And I think a company will best use this by getting their lead developers and the most active developers who are really deep in the product and work with the security team to fork the standard specific to their team. And it accomplishes a couple goals. If you allow developers to really be a part of that process, then they're going to have ownership in this list of security requirements. That's what I'm trying to get here, is ownership. I think the anti-pattern is take ASVS as it is, give it to developers and say, you got to do this now. That is the worst way to use ASVS. Instead, sit with developers, go through the standard, fork it so it's appropriate for that project, let developers have a say and give them the power to mint the first version of your fork. Then you can sneak your stuff in later, like any good legislation. That's my preferred way to use ASVS, less of a standard and more of a requirements bucket to fork for your team.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about that. I'm thinking about that for my, my current company where I lead, I'm the CTO, right? So I lead the engineering team. And so if we were to bring this in with our current team, on the one hand, already it's a little bit overwhelming, right? Like you're saying, this is over 200 requirements, like just to sit down and read it and consider each one carefully. Of course, when you're a startup, you're kind of overwhelmed at all times.
Yep. A couple hours. Julius, it's a couple hours to go through these requirements, like 2 hours. So I don't buy that. We don't have time. We don't have, what I heard you say is, sorry, Jim, we don't have time to do security. Yes,
I'll interject in this one. Yeah, because we do this. So when we kick off with clients, that's one of the first things we do is we scope which one of them are applicable and not. Sure. It usually takes about 3 1-hour sessions. So like we organize like first hour, we go through them, second, third, by that time is usually done. And then they've got a good scope of what they need to put in as requirements. And then we help them put them into like the whatever Jira or whatever system they're using. The one challenge that we encounter sometimes not all of them can be turned into Jira like user stories. Some of them need to be grouped and dealt with as a whole. So that's what we help them with is like, okay, take these requirements, put them as one user story. And as some of them become templates, it's some of them we make it into a pull request template so that every time the developer is doing a pull request, the body's populated with those controls that they need to be top of mind for the developer.
Oh, wow. So some of them you implement as actual like Jira tickets if you're using Jira. And then some of them you implement as like a cross-cutting centralized thing. And then some of them you're saying you implement as actual like almost automated review checklists for every commit.
Yeah, the ones that like, for example, input validation, right? Or make sure there's like the appropriate access control. That applies to almost every user story, right? So it's not a user story itself. Like a user story would be like, well, the user should do input validation. That's not, how you define user stories, right? The user story would be that the user should just view all their transactions when they view their checking account, right? Now, every one of those user access control would apply to every one of them. So when they're, subcommitting a ticket, all those cross-cutting concerns appear in the template and the pull request. Have you made sure you've considered or done evil story or threat modeling around those particular items? Considered those controls.
So you're building, in that case, you're building on this pull request paradigm, which has been, revolutionary for software development and for, code reviews. And so it sounds like that sounds very clever to build on top of that. I wonder, are there other ways? So like because some of the participants here, they might not, they might not
CI/CD or automation or
pull requests, or maybe they don't customize their pull requests to add these tech lists to them. Any recommendations in that case?
If they're following a manual process, like if they haven't set up pipelines or they're not doing pull requests, then again, you can follow the same. It'll just be more of a manual implementation, right? So that list of cross-cutting concerns, you just make them into a checklist. Back in the day when I worked at HSBC, we literally would printed it and put it in the cubicles in front of them. So there was like a piece of paper that had like the controls they need to always remember, right? Like it needs to be somewhere that's top of mind, because what happens is if it's not, they'll forget, right? Like if that input validation is not in front of their face, they're going to forget. Either it needs to be done that way or built as a module that just a library that they just implement and it just does it. But that's not often possible, right? It's possible for certain things like input validation. Wasn't super easy to do that as a single library that everyone could just take and use. There would be some customization required, but there are opportunities like, for example, if you have to inject a bunch of HTTP headers in your response, there are a number of ASVS items that require you to do that. You could turn that into a library, and then every developer in your team uses that library, and it'll automatically inject those headers into your HTTP responses, if you will.
Is a question for Jim. Is ASVS something where you can just sort of download the requirements, study the requirements, and implement it on your own?
Implement it on your own.
Like without,
some of these are really difficult. Like one of the requirements, I'll just go there. So let's go to the English main, let's go to like authentication, and let's be like, all right, MFA, do I have it? Multi-factor, right? So what do we got here? MFA, where am I asked to implement? Somewhere down here, it's like we're asked to implement MFA in one of these requirements. Where am I going? Like, or how about this? Like, just some random. Verify that symmetric keys are used to verify submitted one-time passwords and are highly protected. So what I'm saying is use like some key in a key vault to drive a one-time password. And you want a hardware security vault or a secure operating system based key storage. Yeah, great requirement. How long is it going to take you to build that from scratch?
Yeah.
And how many sub requirements would that feature take? 50, 100? So we're pointing to the right requirement, but it's not something you can just like write a script for and go verify, or write a script for and go build. Some of these are extraordinarily difficult in level 2 and 3. And so what do we do here? Do we build 20 requirements to break that down? That's not sensible. We get to this level, and how to implement and verify that is you're on your own. That's where Farshad and his company comes in.
That's exactly what we come in, totally solutioning that type of stuff.
So this is not turnkey. And like, if we wanted to make it turnkey, there'd be tens of thousands of requirements. So and anything beyond like the 300 level it's already too much.
And then it gets very specific, and then to Jim's point, it gets very specific, platform specific. Like for example, this particular one you've highlighted, highly protected using a hardware security module. That HSM will vary. If you can go buy your own, you can use cloud HSM that depending on whether you're in Azure or AWS, it'll look different. So here is just enough detail saying, use a hardware security module, right? And it leaves the details up to the implementer, which I think is a fair place to leave it off.
I guess what I meant more, I didn't mean like build all your controls and all your security from the ground up. I more meant, can you, like, should you bring in an expert or a consultant or a coach almost to help guide your company as you're starting out an ASVS implementation? Like, I guess, how should your development team interact with ASVS? Like, what should
if you have a security champion that already is an AppSec expert embedded with your team, then they should be the one to drive this with other security resources. And the thing is, the anti-pattern is just get a bunch of security people to drive this and then push it to developers. That's the anti-pattern.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a soft thing. It's not like this hard technical idea.
Exactly.
But you've got to get lead developers involved. In fact, what I do is the first time we fork, I let the developers have the final say, not the security people. And at the end, I got a requirement list that developers fully agreed to. And what that gives me is ownership with that team. And now that I have the base version and they're using it for a bit, as a security guy, I'll start adding my things into it little by little, kind of sneaky, but I really want the early versions to be owned by developers. You'll see a radical difference in it actually getting implemented when that ownership is there. You force this stuff on developers, they're going to hate you for it. So you got to work with them.
Yeah, exactly. And I want to just paint some color around this. So like when Jim is saying, I would do this or let the developer do that, that's if the security person is within that company. So in an enterprise like where I worked at HSBC, that was great because we had security champions, we had the security team, and security team would do exactly what Jim was saying, support the champions, help them drive it and be the mentors, right? Now, if you're a small company that don't have any security team, that's where you would use a consultant to help do that transformation. Not so that that you're just saying, hey, the security consultant is going to do everything. It'll be exactly as Jim was suggesting. Hey, like I want to go on this path. I don't have a security champion. I don't even know where to begin. You can then go on the transformation journey, and that's exactly what we do on a regular basis. We go in, help roll out that security program, which includes identifying who the champions are, supporting them to be successful, mentoring them on these processes and letting them own it. And then the idea is that over a 12 or 24-month period, that team just gets uplifted from zero to now you have a security champion, you've incorporated ASVS requirements into your process, you understand what these things are, and then the team can then drive it from there. And then the security people are there to support the more difficult use cases, right? Like when the team is trying to implement that HSM and they have no idea, that's what the security specialist is there for. It's the 80-20 rule, right? The idea is that the team can do 80% of the stuff based on the transformation that's happened. And then for the 20% that are the more difficult stuff that require deep subject matter expertise, then they go to a subject matter expert for that.
And for example, that requirement, no one should be touching an HSM. Let me look it up. Hardware security module, right? So you'll see like hardware security module listed in the standard in a few different places when we talk about key management. Whenever we mention a key, we mention you got to protect it well. That's really old information. You don't want to use HSMs for anything anymore, in my opinion. HSM should be part of a secrets management product like a HashiCorp or Amazon key management service. No one really is touching HSMs directly. They're not easily programmable. They're used. So that's an example where the requirement is a little dated, but a good AppSec person who's in the know of cryptography would know, don't use hardware vaults, use a service layer on top of that is the real answer. So that kind of nuance, you need experts to help you get through that stuff.
Exactly.
How does so I remember, when I worked myself at a financial institution, we seemed kind of more interested in OWASP Top 10. We didn't seem to be so aware of it.
Oh, stop. Did you just see that? Okay. I didn't mean to tell you to stop, Joe. It just hurts me.
It's true, though. It's a good question.
It hurts me so badly. I didn't mean to, Julius, I've been a little harsh to you today. I'm sorry. I need to remember that. I love Julius because he's a brilliant ally of mine. I'm sorry, Julius. But when you compare the OWASP Top 10 and compare that to like ASVS, I want to show you a page from the ASVS standard that talks about this exact problem. So I'm going to bust out, I'm busting out a PowerPoint, proper presentation software, Julius. Hang on, verifying it because updating. Come on, verify. Microsoft likes to verify. We're almost there, Julius. There we go. So here I got my PowerPoint on the OWASP Top 10. I want to show you this page right here. This is a snippet from ASVS, and it says, look, if you want to breed initial awareness, go ahead and use the OWASP Top 10. But for training, it's entry level. In my own training program at Manico Security, we do secure coding training, thank you. Like the OWASP Top 10 is one of 100 modules. So I talk about it, but it's just entry-level stuff. And would I use it for architecture? Not really. Coding standard, bare minimum. It's no, if you want like something comprehensive, you want to use the ASVS.
It's not even a fair comparison because OWASP Top 10 is like a bunch of mix of attacks and things. It's a very confused, it's like, I don't even know what to call it. It's the top 10 attacks. Like what is XXX? What is
it's the top 10 security things that web and API developers should care about.
But yeah, it's neither threats or controls or anything. ASVS on the other hand,
the risks.
It's no, I've even looked at that. It's not even
no security. Yeah,
like ASVS is clear what it is. Like ASVS can be used as a set of control, like well-defined 282 or 3 or whatever controls, and like the test cases. Right now, some of those could result in attacks. Right. So yeah, I would say like it's unfortunate. A lot of people, as Julius was saying, all they know is OWASP Top 10, and then they come to us and they say, "Hey, I want my application tested. And then the other company is saying, OWASP Top 10. And I'm like, as Jim was mentioning, it's not comprehensive. It doesn't even tell you what to test. It just says like, look for access control problems, or, like it's very, very general, right? Whereas ASVS actually explicitly says, make sure passwords have this many characters, make sure this particular algorithm is used, right? Like that's how you actually, that's an actual standard. Whereas Top 10 is not a standard, and it's just a list of top 10 issues, I think.
You don't want to base a security program off a top 10 list. You just don't. Security is unfortunately an extreme technical discipline that requires a lot of minutia. I think that's why security is so hard, because I can't just buy a product or like buy a firewall and I achieve security. I really can't. I need to have elaborate security process. I need to have mastery of all these different kinds of technology. And I need the right expert people involved who know how to drive all this. And I'm sorry, it's brutally difficult. I don't know of any organization I've ever seen who's got security done. It's something that they're still evolving and maturing, because we're really early in our infancy when it comes to information security as a world, in my opinion. We're doing it real sloppy.
Totally.
It will get better in the next decade, but we have to, and the OWASP Top 10, it's a great talk for a conference, Julius. It's a great way to start, but ASVS is something you can base a program off of. The OWASP Top 10 is not.
Yeah, it's like apples and oranges to me. I mean, they're like totally different things. One is here's the top 10 issues. The other one is a set of controls and test cases that if you adhere to, you can build secure applications, right?
I would say it's more like apples and apple pie. OWASP Top 10, it's like an apple. It's an apple. It's good for you.
It's issues though, but ASVS is not really about issues. ASVS was about test cases.
What was that first shot? I'm sorry.
So I was just saying, OWASP Top 10 is more about like issues, whereas ASVS is more about like what to do or how to test it. So I see them differently in that way, but yeah.
Kirk Hundeck was one of our guests. He says, rock on, folks. Love the chatter. My 2 cents. OWASP Top 10 is what can go wrong, and ASVS are the checks, controls that will prevent that top 10 from becoming a reality. Build secure apps. And, hey, Kirk, my comment is that the OWASP Top 10 is a very incomplete, unnuanced list of what can go wrong. It's not enough. And in fact, there are so many things in the ASVS that are not covered by the OWASP Top 10. So I just want to revise, it's just my opinion that, right on, Kurt, OWASP Top 10 is an entry-level take on what can go wrong. And the ASVS is a control list that's a lot more comprehensive that we can use as a base for an entire program when driving application security. But I'm with you, Kurt. I see where you're coming from. I like it.
I'm going to hit you guys with more of my newbie questions here. So this ASVS, like it's partitioned into this level 1, level 2, level 3, and I love the way it's presented too, right? Like it's if you implement this, this is important to implement. It grows, right? Level 1, and then now you want to get more secure. You grow up to level 2, etc. But it's interesting, Jim, that you mentioned that concept is going to change a bit in the 5.0 version. Although to me, what it sounds like is that you guys kind of had an intention with the level 1, 2, 3, and now you're going to more. But the whole industry sort of took it a different way. And so now you're going to kind of reconcile that. It's like, oh, this is the way people are using this level 1, 2, 3 thing. So we're going to just sort of follow the way people are using it, because people, like you saying, it for you guys, it was about which is automated and which is, But nonetheless, here's my newbie question.
Let's go back in history, though. Let's go back like 15 years when ASVS was first written. ASVS was first written by a consultancy group. They did a great job, because that's the consultancy group who built it. They were making like 20 grand a pop just selling secure coding requirements, and they decided to open source that work. So I think it was really good work. But when they were putting out ASVS, they were looking at it more around how to scope assessments. And like at level 1, we'll run a bunch of scanners for cheap. At level 2, we'll do a little bit of pen testing with our scanners. And at level 3, we'll do a full comprehensive test. So, so ASVS originally was 3 different testing levels based on how to cost spec out an assessment for an app. And it showed exactly, it made it codified, because when you hire a pen tester, you have no idea what you're getting. When you're hiring a pen tester that's using ASVS, you got a clear list of what they're going after. And so you can see the completeness or lack of, and you can scope out different levels of assessment. That was great 15 years ago. But if you take a look at more modern application security standards, one of my favorite is NIST 863, 63 and 63 A, B, and C. This is the digital authentication guideline for US government. It's the main framework for authentication across the United States and North America, for that matter. They have 3 risk levels. Level 1 is for like public data, and username password is just fine if the data is not sensitive. Level 2, that's more for sensitive data, and it requires some form of multi-factor. And at level 3, they're talking critical infrastructure that requires hardware tokens and smart cards and YubiKeys that do actual key, cryptographic exchange as part of verification. Those are risk levels based on how sensitive the data is and how dangerous the app is in terms of what could go wrong if there's an attack. There's a different list of requirements. ASVS doesn't do that today. It's just testing levels. When we move to 5.0, we're going to shift to risk levels. Level 1 will be for like public data only, the weakest part of the standard that's achievable. Our main focus on level 1 is a great entry point to get started, but it's not going to give you a secure app. Level 2 will be the baseline for secure apps, and level 3 will be, this is critical infrastructure. We got to up it. Like one of the level 3 things that I've seen recently, I want to add a requirement for, is make sure that the key that you use for logging in, make sure the multi-factor token you use for login and the multi-factor token you use for transactions is different. This is, for example, what the Kraken coin exchange does. They're freaking brilliant. Like they'll let me set up my login key on one multi-factor device and put a key on a separate multi-factor device that I can bury away somewhere until I want to make a transaction. Yeah, that's an example of a level 3 crazy requirement that infrastructure should consider.
It's funny that you bring it up, Jim, actually, because banks, like the one that I worked at, it was a similar thing. You had your authentication credentials, but when you wanted to send money, then there was like that hardware token. You had to put in that code or whatever, but there were 2 different credentials, one for sending, one for logging in case for the authentication gets compromised. People still can't do too much damage because you have that for moving money. There was a higher level of control using a different set of credentials protected elsewhere. Yeah, that's a really, really, really good point.
Awesome. Julius, what else you got for us? What else you got for us, Julius?
We've got some chat. Though that's you, yeah. Okay, yeah. As a newbie, right? I'm just like, and let's pretend, I guess, or even version 4 of the spec. So if I achieve level 2 across the board, is my app secure then? Like, how much confidence can I have if I've worked through all the ASVS requirements and I've, figured out which ones actually apply to my system?
Yep.
And we've gone through, are we secure then?
If you've thoroughly done the level 2 requirements thoroughly and tested rigorously, you now have baseline security in your app. As you move to level 3, you're going to start looking at more intensive controls, like more modern forms of multi-factor, some really like extreme, these are extreme requirements that are level 3 only. Let me try to find a few of them for us. Hang on, where am I going?
They kind of like, yeah, they give me that sort of Hunt for the Red October, like launching the nuclear missiles kind of vibe.
Yeah, seriously, like level 3 is reserved for like software that manages billions of records or is shooting missiles, like military type stuff. That's where level 3 shows up, seriously. So let me go to cryptography. Are there any? I'm hunting for level 3 only required. There we go. Verify that encrypted data is authenticated via signatures, authenticated cipher modes, or HMAC to ensure ciphertext is not altered by an unauthorized party. I guess level 3. Verify the cryptographic operations are constant time, no short circuit ops in comparison, calc, or returns. That's hard to get right. That's level 3. What else? Verify that random numbers are created with proper entropy, even the application is under heavy load. I would vote that should be a level 2, but let's give you examples. Level 3 should be hard stuff. Anything else? Let me go to authentication. We're at the
like one of the ones that I can remember. Yeah, in authentication, Jim, there's the one where like your salt for level 1 is just keep the salt wherever. Level 2 is like encrypted. Level 3 is like that encryption key should be protected by an HSM. So I think that is a good example.
Would you know which one that is? Or
It's
here's a
on the authentication right around there. Yeah, go down 2.3. It's the look up salt. Just look up salt and then.
I think I stripped out the salt stuff recently. 224. Here. How about this? This is level 3 only. Verify that a hardware-based authenticator and an authenticator that provides verifier impersonation resistance against phishing is used. This is a multi-factor hardware device or a combination of single factor and OTP. This is really pushing you towards YubiKey and smart cards type stuff, right? Level 3, that's appropriate for level 3. Because you could have a real secure app and you're doing SMS multi-factor, you're still a secure app. And if you've rated your app as critical infrastructure, you should probably move up to a hardware-based authentication, which is like the FIDO world, much stronger.
We have a comment again.
I agree, Kurt. Kurt says you should threat model first. Yep. Kurt, I got to understand what level of severity the app is under before I can apply requirements. So a threat model or just understanding the risk of that app is a great place to start. I agree with you.
By the way, for those that I can show a picture of a YubiKey. It's just a little USB device. They're brilliant. Man, they're so much fun. Actually, people love them. I give them to all my friends, and then I help them set them up. And my friends are always like, "Whoa, it feels like my email is even more important to me now." So yeah, YubiKeys are brilliant. Or FIDO keys.
I'm doing some work here. I'm looking at. So what did Josh just do? He's updating. We published our roadmap. Oh, good job, Josh. So like it's one of the. So show all reviewers. Yeah, he's not letting me merge it. He's like, you all got to review it. All right. There you go, Josh. I'll review your changes. I will approve. I will submit. I'm waiting for the other two. No, I can do it now. Okay, great. I'm gonna merge it. Yeah, we're merging.
Oh wow.
Base.
The 5.0 standard just edited here during the webinar. That's amazing.
What's this? Resolve. What's this? PR. Merge. They're blocking me. I don't like being blocked for merging, damn it. So let's add my review. You see how I roll. Review changes, approve, submit my review. What's going on here? But what does this change real quick? What do we do? Verify server configuration is hardened. I'm just giving you a little glimpse in what I do as what my work is one of the project leads. So here's the change that's in place here. Let's look at it.
Yeah, it looks like improvement on the wording.
Verify that the server config is hardened as per the recommendations of the app server and frameworks in use. Verify that configuration hardening is performed in all third-party products. Yeah, I like that. It's a really nice cleanup.
Is that for which level would that be for? Level 1, 2, or 3?
It already is set. What is 14.13? Let's go look at this. So let me go back to here. So I want to go back to, let's go to GitHub. So I'm just showing you how the baked goods are baked, or I don't know what the proper saying is, but
baked goods are baked.
So I'm going to go back to the core of ASVS now. I'm going to go to the 5.0 branch, English, and we're looking at 14 cryptography, I guess. And this is 14.1.3. And Josh, no, go back. 14 config section, 14.1.3. It's a level 2.1. That's fair. Now watch this. Josh screwed this up. Josh, I love you, Josh. Don't forget. But he needs to flag this as a modified requirement. And so where is he working here? What branch is he in? I want to understand. Where are you doing this, Josh?
T Ghost H patch 2 is the branch.
So I'm going to pop open GitHub. I do all my work in GitHub desktop because don't judge me. It's just what I do. I'm going to pull the latest origin and I'm going to move the branch out to, which one was it again? It was tjosh patch 2. Where are you? Where are you, Josh?
There it is.
Where'd you see it?
You scroll down a bit. There's one patch 1, 2, and 3. If you scroll, there they are. Patch 1, 2, 3.
Great. I'm going to go to this, and I'm going to fetch that origin now. So which one was this? This was in the 14 branch. I'm going to go open in Finder, and I'm just going to go. You can see my horrible workflow here. I'm going to go grab this and open in the most Sublime editor. Sublime text. Oh, it's so sublime. I'm now going to, what am I going to? I'm going to 14.1.3. This is the new one. And Josh, you got to do this. He knows better. MODI. Elar will get very mad if you check it in wrong. So I'm going to put the modified flag in there. And then I'm going to go back to GitHub desktop, and I'm going to commit. It's good to commit and be committed. There we go. There's my note. I don't like notes. Commit. I'm going to push. I push to the branch, right? So if I go back to here and refresh, you'll see the modified flag. And now, damn it, Josh, making me do that stuff. Now I can merge it, and now I can go merge that. There you go. And Elar won't be mad at us. So that's just a little glimpse of how the work is done.
Oh, very nice.
There's a couple of good questions on the. There was one from
the sausages.
Kurt. There's one from Kurt.
Right. It's not baked goods, it's sausage. He's right. Baked goods have a lot of sugar and carb. I'm not into it. The right sausage is low carb, high protein ketosis. So John's right. The levels in the diff. Yep.
Kurt's asking, sounds like threat modeling of the application would be a good step one before ASVS. What do you guys think of that?
If you scroll up a little on the chat, Olivier had asked, I'm new to ASVS. Is there any tools for automating testing against the different levels of ASVS?
Oh, hang on for a sec. The answer to that is no. Let me explain why. The levels used to be level 2 and 3 are hard to automate. That's all going away, Kurt. Level 1 is going to be baseline risk for like public data. Level 2 will be the baseline for all sensitive data. And level 3 is going to be critical infrastructure. Yes, I speak of the future. As it is right now, and I'm past 4.03. I'm sorry, Kurt. So,
critical. So
what I'm trying to make, Kurt, is.
But I think the question. Hang on. Sorry, gentlemen. I think the question is misunderstood. I think if I read this question is, can you automate all of ASVS? The answer is no.
No.
Right? Like you can't automate all of it, whether it's level 1, 2, or 3, or the new organization or categories. You can't automate it because by inherently things like access control, you can't automate because there's no context.
Oh, that's not fair. Hang on. No, Farshad.
Jim, I'm quoting your own. I'm quoting you. No, Jim.
That's not fair. No.
You're quoting ASVS. It says, I'll bring it up. I'll bring it up. It says access control cannot be automated.
Don't make me come over there.
I'll bring it up. Hang on.
Farshad, what I said was turnkey scanning tools cannot assess access control properly. That's my quote. But you can automate any of ASVS with custom security unit testing.
How are you going to check whether an HSM is used? And the one that you just showed me, you cannot automate all of it. There's lots of things that you actually got to go manually look at the design, look at the setup. You cannot automate all of it.
You're right. You're
there's
right.
Lots of these, like some of those.
You're right. But there's a lot. I would say 95+%. I would say like half of ASVS is covered by turnkey scanners. Like 45% is covered by security unit testing, which is brutal, Farshad. And 5% is going to require threat modeling and in-person verification.
So here, I'm reading the ASVS right now.
I concede to your wisdom in this matter. Go ahead.
Yeah, because it says, quote, it says automated tools and online scans are enabled to complete more than half. So they can only complete less than half without human assistance. If comprehensive test automation for each build is required, then a combination of custom unit and integration along with build initiated scans are used. Business logic flaws and access control testing is only possible using human assistance. And that's true. I mean, that's our experience. You cannot, business logic, the tool is not going to know if this function is supposed to call the other thing or what that function is supposed to do. That's for a human to look at. So, right, like when you say pen testing cannot be automated by definition, right? Pen testing is a combination of manual and automated activities, right? The automated activities give you a basis to start, and then the pen tester takes all that stuff and then tries to figure out how to break the application. So by definition, it cannot be automated. Part of it can be, and that's your vulnerability assessment, which then can get used in the pen testing. if I'm not mistaken.
I'm with you. I'm with you. The only point I was trying to make is that a lot of these things that a turnkey scanner cannot discover,
Totally,
we can do custom scripting and custom unit testing to do good testing. And some of these we just can't. I agree with you, Farshad.
It's funny because I get a bit passionate about this one because we get all these people that come to us and say, hey, you know, this company said we can automate the pen test and they can do it for really cheap. I'm like, by definition, the word pen testing means like there's manual stuff involved. And, you know, then I bring up this quote because this is like my pet peeve, right? Because they assume that like some scanner will do all the tricks. They'll use AppScan or whatever the best scanner is, and that does everything. And that's not true. There's lots of stuff that manual testing is going to help with.
I have a quick newbie question for you guys, which is like, what are the scanners that you can use? So like you take these scanners and you point them at your system, at your web application. Just what are the names of some of the scanners?
Well, one's called MergeBase.
Yeah.
That's an SCA scanner, software composition.
That's critical. That's part of the ASVS world. Are you scanning to make sure your third-party libraries are kept up to date? This is the heart of what MergeBase does. This is the heart of the parent company of this webinar. And we got to mention it, Julius. That's what we do.
But are there, what are some of the other scanners that you see people using?
Let's talk categories and not specific scanners, if you don't mind, right?
Yeah.
There's SAS, DAST, IAST, and SCA are the four major scanner types in our industry right now, right? There's like ZAP, for example, I'm sorry, there's dynamic DAST. That's a scanner that you need to run against a live running web app or API. It will send an attack payload, get a response, analyze the response to see if the attack was successful. DAST, dynamic scanner. It's basically a scanner that has some pen tests built into it. And it's the classic testing. It's one of the original testing scanners we had in the industry. That's DAST. And you got to have a running app and you're going to send attack payloads to it. Number two, we have SAST, static analysis security testing. This is not going to run against a running app. It's going to run against your code base. This is something I would point at GitHub or point at my code repo. It would scan the code using a specialized compiler looking for security vulnerabilities in the code. This is my preferred kind of top-line scanning tool. I can configure it in a lot of different ways to have different kind of performance and testing characteristics. I like SAS. I don't want to have a running app because it takes me hours to scan it. When I run modern SaaS products, I can get a scan in a couple minutes. It makes it nice for DevOps, Julius, by the way. Category 3 is a newer category called IAST, Integrated Application Security Testing. This is where you're installing an agent in your live app, and the agent is able to see the data flow in the app itself. This is a very promising category, but I think the vendors in this space are expensive and they're limited in what they can find. What they do find, they find really accurately, very well. Several of my big customers who have the budget do use them as part of their QA process. They install agents on dev servers, let the QA go after it, and they'll discover problems along the way because they have an agent in it. I like it, but I like, one of my favorites in the space is HDiv. I like their pricing. The other big one is Contrast. They're pricey, but they are very mature at what they do. And like I dismissed them 3 years ago. I can't dismiss them anymore. They've really matured their product. I like what they're doing. Fourth, now Julius, this is my favorite category. It's a sacred category to my life. Not because I'm a stock owning advisor in your company there, or investor, just because I love SCA. I think it's the biggest unsolved problem today. MergeBase is SCA, software composition analysis. It's going to look at third-party libraries and let you know if there's a known vulnerability in them using a variety of different methods. I like MergeBase. You got a patent on understanding if the vulnerability in a third-party library actually impacts the current software. Not a lot of folks do that well. And so I love MergeBase. I like the sophistication that you built into it, Julius. It's why I wrote you a check and invested in your company, damn it. And that's the fourth category of tools, software composition analysis. Julius, Did I answer your question satisfactorily, sir?
Yeah, and then I guess to add to that though, like how much percentage of ASVS can you sort of assess yourself against with those tools? Like together, those four categories of scanners, you're going to capture about half of ASVS. You guys
50 or so percent can be discovered by automated turnkey scanning tools that you haven't configured, about half. The other half, you're going to need to write unit testing, do pen testing, or configure the tools in specialized ways.
And yeah, to add to Jim, what we did is internally, we took the ASVS controls, we put them in a spreadsheet, and then we added a column, the method of testing, because it helps us when we're working with the clients. We're like, oh, hey, this control, it can be tested with SAST or DAST or SCA or manual or whatever. And then when we do that scoping initially, when we kick off with a client, we figure out which ASVS items apply to them. And then the other column shows us how we can test it. So we say to them, hey, look, these 20 of them, it's all can be addressed by SAST. And then we roll that out. And then they can easily see by rolling out SAST, SCA, DAST, how much of those ASVS items they've addressed.
Let's head back to the slide deck, if you don't mind, Jim.
There was one more question we missed. Kurt was asking about threat modeling of the application is a good step before ASVS. I think it's a good idea. I mean, it's it's always a good idea to start doing that initial threat modeling, and when you at the inception stage of the project, and having an idea of what the particular. It may not be very detailed because you haven't really fleshed out the product very very well at that inception stage, but at a starting point, it'll give you an idea of what threat scenarios are of concern to you, and then based on that, when you're scoping your ASVS items, you'll have more clarity because you'll know, hey, I'm concerned about these threats. These particular ASVS items address these threat scenarios, and then they can become requirements for you. So yeah, I think it's a valuable activity.
Let me answer a few of these final questions. We need to wrap it up. We're coming to the end of our day here. So can ASVS be used for mobile apps? I wouldn't use ASVS. I would use the MASVS. There's a whole different project, the mobile application security standard. And I would focus on the client side requirements in MASVS so you can address your mobile world. What about REST? Oh, absolutely. The core ASVS has a whole web service section. So yes, you can use the core ASVS. Case studies, who uses ASVS? It's cited by like the different security technical standards in the military. The FTC cites it. I believe
Government of
MITRE cites it. It's now like, it's been around for quite a few years. There are many major organizations and governments all over the world that use it, to the point where we stopped keeping track of it. We don't even list it anymore because it's so widespread.
Like just, download the PDF, read ASVS, just read the whole thing, and it speaks for itself. Like
the Canadian government, by the way, references it as well.
Let's wrap for the day. Before I go through the conclusion, does anybody have any, Julius or Farshad, do you have any final thoughts on the day?
Use it. ASVS is great. Don't bother making your own security standard, right? Adopt ASVS, contribute to it, make it better.
Thank you so much.
How many languages is it translated into now?
A couple. I'm not 100% sure. Like over a half dozen. If you go, in fact, let me see if I can answer that question for you a little bit better. French, Russian, Arabic, Spanish, just off to memory. So it's translated quite a few times.
Yeah, it's really an incredible resource, and it's almost like a hidden gem too. Like I think a lot of software engineers aren't aware of it. It's like we almost need to get computer science schools to reference it, to just include it in that, like just in the undergraduate programs, just be like, hey, here's this thing, like check it out, because it is a remarkable document, kind of like almost like stone tablets being handed down. It has so much incredible knowledge around application security just encoded inside it. It's amazing. So yeah, amazing work, Jim and Farshad, because I know you both have contributed a lot to it.
I also want to say thank you to Jeff Williams, Mike Babursky, and Dave Wicker, some of the original authors. I also want to say thank you to Daniel Cuthbert, Elar Lang, and Joshua Grossman, the current leadership team. I want to shout out to Elar and Josh. They are working tirelessly in approaching the 5.0 version. We take turns and who's like the real drivers, and like Josh and Elar right now. I also want to say thank you to the hundreds of people around the world who've helped contribute to the standard. Here's my final thoughts. Number one, fork it. Customize it to suit your team and get developers involved in the fork. Make sure software leads are on board and prioritize implementation to address your particular threat scenarios. So we're asking you to use ASVS as a base and fork off of it so it's most appropriate for your team. So our next webinar is June 3rd. We're going to talk about crypto. We're going to talk about favorite algorithms, avoiding easy mistakes and similar. And what is it? What is this final quote? In the real world, if you build a bookshelf and forget to tighten one of the screws all the way, it does not burn down your house. With crypto, it does. So this is going to be a fun talk on June 3rd. I'm looking forward to this, gentlemen.
Awesome.
That's it. That's our day.
Very exciting.
Let's call it.
Thanks, gentlemen. Thanks for all the questions.
Jim. Thanks, Farshad. Thank you guys so much. That was wonderful.
It's always a lot of fun. Thanks, Julius. Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Farshad. Thanks, Julius. And thank you all for listening. Don't forget MergeBase. Check us out, and we'll see you all next time.
MergeBase is amazing. Grab ASVS, grab MergeBase.